this started. Oh, there it is. Hello, welcome to Coming Out with Cannabis with your hosts, Christina D'Arcangelo Pooler and Wayne Kelly. Today, we're talking to Lezli Engelking, founder of Focus, Foundation of Cannabis Unified Standards. I'm looking forward to this conversation. As I mentioned, Lezli, earlier in our preamp, that's my previous life in traditional healthcare. So, but first, CP!
Every time he does it, he gets a little better every single time.
A little more animated. I had an arm move. I did an arm thing that
yes,
like,
you did, like, charge!
It's Friday, fans.
It's exactly right. You're thinking about Captain and Coke for Friday. You're trying to do the Captain impression.
It's St. Patrick's Day 5, people. You know, like I said, Kelly, make sure that Patty's Day happens next Saturday.
And you're sporting your Cresco t-shirt, so shout out to Cresco today. You know, we love you guys too.
That's right. Anyway.
So thank you all for joining us today. In the spirit of Women's History Month, we have another guest of ours who also happens to be a colleague. We've known each other now for about 3 years, right, Lezli?
I think
we met a little while ago. It was in the summer. We had a mutual person that we were connected to, and we both had to speak about something that was actually similar at the time, and that's how we met. And I appreciate Lezli because she's another person who has come out of traditional biotech, Genentech, which is a flagship biotech. And I think it was very brave to leave Genentech to jump into the cannabis industry. Now, how many years ago was that, Lezli?
So I just want to confirm, I don't know Genentech is, I work for Eli Lilly.
Oh, Lilly. Okay, you know what? My apologies.
Yeah, no,
Kristen,
I was like, wait, I don't think
Kristen,
this is right.
I'm so sorry. Kristen Heidelbach Teramato from the Teamsters, she worked at Genentech.
Yes.
You came from Lilly. Very big pharma companies, Genentech, Roche, Lilly. Yeah. So my apologies for mixing the two of you guys up. I love you guys both the same, though. So. Just don't tell Kristen that.
And it was, 2010, 2011. So it was quite a while ago. And obviously the industry looks really different today than it did then. So it was a big step, but I'm very grateful to the folks that talked me into it and sort of showed me this opportunity, because I feel like it's led me to right where I'm supposed to be and being able to kind of help and give back in the way I want to, and also make a living doing stuff I love.
Right.
And you're making a difference, Lezli. I mean, you are all over the world. So Focus is not just a U.S. company. Lezli was just in Slovenia.
Wow.
What was it, 3 weeks ago?
Yep.
And Poland. I don't drink for too much, right?
Wow. Yes, you do.
Yep. And Kansas. And
you're an international brand, which I think is fantastic. I think it's important for people to understand that not only do you understand the United States, the cannabis provisions, as well as the Farm Bill, as well as you do, but you're also able to navigate in the EMEA and elsewhere, which I think is fantastic, because there's not a lot of people that have your skill set. And I know that, there's clients of ours that are engaging Focus for certain needs that they have. And some of the stuff is like pretty exciting that I think we're going to have a chance to work on together.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like really, really exciting stuff. Yeah. Like first time people really, there's only this one thing we're working on. There's only 2 others that have done this in the US. And so it's pretty exciting to be able to do this together.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Lezli, can you tell us a little bit about, how Focus started? I think it was 2014. I saw, and just tell us a little bit about that journey, if you could. Like I shared prior to this call, my traditional work was in quality standards, so I really love what you're doing. So please share a little bit about that.
As when I decided to start Focus, I didn't know exactly how to do it. I just knew that there was a very big need within the industry for a health and safety organization that could really be the third party, independent nonpartisan bridge between regulatory and industry. So really, we exist to, we serve, ultimately we serve the patients and consumers and the public, but we do that through our work, through regulatory work, as well as through industry work. So helping regulators put together programs that provide adequate protections for health and safety, that integrate in with existing pharmaceutical trade agreements from other countries and into the systems that are already, the regulatory systems that are already existing for food or pharma or ag, rather than trying to create this outside thing for cannabis that doesn't fit within the rest of the way the regulatory system works. And so we're very thrilled and honored to be able to help not just the US government, but governments around the world put together, programs that have adequate protections for health and safety, that we can help them prevent making the same mistakes that other states or countries have made, take all the lessons. And because we don't have a financial stake in the industry, we're in a very unique position to be able to provide advice and information that is database, and it's not one-sided whatsoever.
Right.
The goal is simply health and safety, because the outcome is not a financial, implication to us one way or the other. But then I think too, the other part of what we do on the industry side is super important. And really that was what the impetus was for me to create this company, because I got into the industry as an operator. It was my name on the application that won the first license in Phoenix, Arizona.
Nice.
And I, like I said earlier, I was sort of talked into it by some friends, and I was very unsure at the time, just coming from a very regulated industry like into something in 2010, 2011 that was really still a little taboo to even talk about stigma, right? I mean, amazing the difference in where we are today and where we were then on ability to even have conversations publicly and not, have an issue. So, but really the side that we work with the industry is so important, because as an operator, we were very fortunate to grow exponentially, like just crazy fast. In the 2.5 years that I was there, we opened 5 more facilities, and we did, cultivation, manufacturing, infused products, retail. So I learned the hard way. Important it is to have good business practices, to have standards in place, to have a compliance program, to have really good training, to not only help your business grow, which certainly is very important in this industry with so many small business owners, but to really protect your liability and mitigate risk, right? And through creating safe products, through creating safe workplaces for employees, for making sure that the end packaging is safe for the community in which the program is operating, all that kind of stuff. So I love being able to help, because when I talk to new clients and see what they're going through, I so can relate to that. I really that angst and that feeling of just running so fast that, like, the idea of sitting down and writing an SOP or writing a training program is like, oh, I'll do that next. And so you end up continually drinking out of a fire hose, putting fires everywhere, and you don't actually make progress because you're being reactive instead of proactive. So it really brings me a lot of joy to be able to help people get through that and provide some of that support.
Nice.
And I'm sure a lot of these clients appreciate your experience, right? Because it helps you build your peripheral toolbox, if you will, to be able to see a need in this industry, to want to create a company surrounding that.
Yep.
And so that should bring some comfort, to them, because they know you've been there, done that, and you were in the infancy stages, so to speak, as far as the industry was concerned, and it was pretty, brave of you to say, okay, I'm just going to do this, even though your friends kind of tossed you in the pot there.
No pun intended.
But thank goodness they did, because if they hadn't,
I'm so grateful.
Right, you wouldn't have done what you've done and created this company.
Yeah, it was like literally, I would have never even had the idea of the need for something like Focus without that experience. So I'm ultimately just so grateful for that. And we were doing the best we could, right? And that's how I knew, our intent was so good. It was just we're still missing the mark on things. And so that's how I knew. And it is really helpful for our clients. Most of my team has been operators at one point or another. They're no longer, have a financial stake in the industry,
Right.
but so we do bring a lot of that experience, like firsthand, that we're able to come into a busy facility that doesn't have the opportunity to shut down operations just to fix some things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And be able to help them fix those problems and make progress and create efficiencies and lower costs while
That's
they're
awesome.
operating,
Right.
That's the good stuff.
And you're able to do a gap analysis for them so that you're going to see things that perhaps they're not going to see because they're in the trenches of just trying to do the work every day and get the product out the door for the patients that are sick that are coming in, and then keeping up on the trends with respect to the products and the patients and the therapeutic areas. They're focused on all of that stuff. So it's great that you guys kind of come in as a SWAT team, so to speak, for them, where you come in and you set them up, you make sure everybody is properly trained, that you have the audit trail behind everything that you're doing so that you could pass the red face test, barring the DOH knocking on the door one day. Nobody wants that. So, you set them up for success, so to speak, and they don't have to worry that this is one thing that's being taken care of for them. And this is something that at nighttime, when they go home and they try to have dinner, they don't have to worry about.
Exactly. Yeah. And the gap it's funny, we do a lot of them. And people initially, when they hear gap analysis, they think audit, right? Just like the state, they're like, what do we need to do to prep? And we do quite a few gaps because it's just a one-day on-site. But when we go in for a gap analysis, we don't look at things like an auditor would. So even though we have auditors on our team that do certification, when you go in for a gap, we're really looking at where a company is today, how their operations are functioning today versus where they want to be, which would be meeting the standards, right? And then we don't only look at the gap between them, but we look at why those gaps exist. And so it's a nice way for people to engage with us in sort of a small first step type of fashion and end up with a very valuable piece of information in the report that we provide that says, hey, here's a high, medium, and low priority list of really the things that are, high priority would be any kind of safety or health risk to either products or employees or something like that, versus something that's a little bit lower level that doesn't necessarily need to be fixed today. But if you're really going to try and get your operations the best they can be, that we want to build that into our plan and stuff. So just having that piece of paper and understanding that is a big step in the right direction, because our goal is to have every client audit ready all the time. Nice. Right? So that's success.
Now, Lezli, my question, I guess, is, so you create the analysis and a company or a location meets the analysis. Do they receive a certification? Do you, when they meet your standards, do you certify that location?
So a gap analysis is sort of a one-day service that we use to engage with people and sort of give them insight into their operations. That information, if they choose to then go through certification, is obviously utilized within the certification process. But clients can take the information from the gap, meet the standards themselves, do all the remediation work that's listed in that report, and then come back and say, okay, I'm ready for certification. It's not that we have to get them ready.
Right.
Other clients say, we just want you to come in, we get just new client last night, super, super busy, doing, tons of business. And they're like, we don't have the bandwidth to do this. We have the people, we have the talent, but we don't have the bandwidth. We want to just hire your company to come in and get us ready for certification and make sure, everything's in order, that we're meeting the standards. And so there's that part of it too. Some people want all of it. Some people just want to fix it themselves, and that's great. I mean, our goal is to set everybody up for success. So we really see everything that we do with our clients as a partnership. We're here to achieve all of your goals and your KPIs. And so we really look at things once they've met the standard in the first year. We come back the beginning of the second year and we say, okay, so what are your goals as an organization? What are your corporate achievements that you're looking to meet over the next year or 3 or 5 years? And so by doing that, we can then build in efficiencies and cost reduction and risk mitigation and set them up for success as they're going to expand either into other states in the US, or if they're wanting to do import and export globally, you know, that kind of stuff.
Nice. Now, what is your wheelhouse? What is your ideal client?
It's funny that you asked that. We had a team meeting. I had everybody in town a couple weeks ago, and we had a new guest, a guy that's joining our team with us, and he said, "So what is the ideal client?" And I don't think anyone in the room had the same answer.
Well, not in this industry, right?
Yeah. So I would say this: our ideal client is really based on the values of the client, much more so than the operation, right? So the ideal client is somebody that wants to do the right thing, that has the motivation and impetus to work towards something that's not necessarily easy, but is definitely valuable. And they can see that long-term value enough to sort of commit to this, right? Because it's not an easy process. We don't sugarcoat things. Like, people that are trying to meet the standards, everybody's at a different level, but it's a process. And we're going through the same process right now internally for our international accreditation with ANSI. And I had to hire somebody else for that role to just do that, and it takes a lot of my time, but it's the right thing to do, right? And it definitely makes our brand so much stronger because we have that accreditation in a couple months. So we'll be the only internationally accredited cannabis certification.
Ooh, very
That's
cool.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
That is nice.
It's exciting. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. And yeah, so that it is hard. So to me, the client I want is the one that sees the value in what we're doing and is motivated to get there. It doesn't really matter what type of operation, whether it's a lab or a grow or a manufacturing facility or a retail. It doesn't really matter if it's big or small, or if it's CBD or THC. Across the board, we're here to help. That's sort of our slogan. Anybody that is looking for help, whether that's, you know, on the industry side through the for-profit or the regulatory side through the nonprofit.
Very cool. Well, definitely a change maker. And, you know, we appreciate your effort. In fact, Christina, what was that tagline?
Be the champion for change.
Yeah, be the champion for change. And you are, Leslie, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, I like what I do.
Yeah, you can tell. It's written on your face.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
That's one of the really cool and amazing things I think that happens in our industry, is that we get to work with people like yourselves and, you know, all the others.
Like you guys. I mean, there's so many amazing people in this industry.
Yeah, and we're just trying to help, and we're trying to make sure we do things properly. You know, yeah, we're always worried about compliance from a clinical research standpoint, and you know, and if we're talking about tech, obviously we're talking about our bots helping patients and making a difference in their lives, and they feel supported. So I think the good thing about this industry is that most of us are in it, to actually help the patients, you know, for the greater good of the patients. And that's definitely the focus standard. I mean, you're looking, you know, it reminds me of when I was at J&J, my second job in the industry. And, you know, they have a credo, and number one on their credo are the patients. And that has resonated with me. Oh, I don't want to say how many years ago that was when I was at J&J. But, you know, that's always been what I focus on as a professional, and, you know, worked for companies. One
of the best things that I learned in pharma, when I went into the sales part of pharma, my manager said to me, he's like, Leslie, as long as you go in and speak to the physicians and you only have the patient's best interest at heart, that you literally are there to help them help their patients, not to sell products, not to do anything else. He's like, you will always be successful because you're partnering with them to help them achieve the outcomes that they want. And I truly, I mean, I quote that all the time and speak about this because I feel like that's the company I built, right? Like, I'm here to help you do what you need to do. And as a rep, I was there to help physicians make a decision, a very solid data-driven decision on, is this or is this not the right medication for this particular patient? And a lot of that includes saying, no, this isn't the right medicine for this, right? Everything isn't a one fits all. And so we I take that to heart in what we do. Every client is not the right client for Focus. We definitely, you know, have an interview process, and there's not always things we should do. We make a ton of referrals to other people in this industry that we feel can handle things better and give the client the best chance of success. So I think that that's patients first always. And if you keep that end user in mind, I feel like you're always going to make good decisions.
Right. I mean, that was
nice.
one of the reasons why we started this YouTube channel, was that we wanted, you know, because we work so closely with, that's why I wore my APA sweatshirt today. It looks super casual, but it's my Affinity Patient Advocacy sweatshirt. And, you know, that's my nonprofit. And that really, truly helps patients from an advocacy standpoint, where they have a voice. And whether it's us providing that voice for them, or helping them feel empowered to provide themselves their own voice to be heard. You know, that's one of the things that we really, really strive to do, is to make sure that the patients are protected and they have the right information. And so that was one of the basis or premises for why we started this YouTube channel. We have subscribers that follow us on Instagram, either it's Affinity Bio or APA or Cannabis, AIHO. And they are now following our YouTube channel. And when I spoke a couple of weeks ago for the Lieutenant Governor's thing in Pennsylvania, he's doing that road show for the rec process. There were patients in the crowd that knew the companies, knew me, and they were cheering me on, you know, when I was speaking. And it was awesome, you know, because it was like, this is why we do what we do, you know. And so that was one of the reasons why, besides it being, you know, Women's History Month, we wanted to make sure we had you on the very beginning of our show, Lezli. And we'll have you on again as we're doing some of these awesome projects together. I think that we'll be able to, you know, when there's nothing confidential that, you know, when there's things we can say that's not confidential, then we can talk to the public about it, you know, and help them understand, like, what we're working on to make it better for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have so much respect. And I think this is part of the reason when you and I first met that we connected so well, is just because we, as an organization, Focus does not advocate for cannabis or patients as far as like pushing policy or speaking for them. That's not our role. Our role is to advocate for health and safety for everyone, whether it's a patient, an employee, or a member of the public, right? And so we're very different in the sense that we're not an advocacy organization, and there's such a huge place in this space and need for advocacy, right? I mean, there's just, these are legitimate patients.
Yeah, they're so sick.
Seen as legitimate patients and need somebody to look out for them.
Oh, absolutely.
So, tremendous amount of respect.
Thank you so much.
I don't know if you heard, but Alexa did remind us to wrap it up. Alexa, thank you. So that was about our 20 minutes. But, you know, we're going to spend a few more minutes here wrapping it up. But, you know, Lezli, I really appreciate the stuff you're doing. And as Christina was mentioning, it's really about helping the patients. And, you know, as myself, the data guy or whatever, it's really about the data for me, you know, providing a free channel of education to patients so that they have some place to go, whether it's the Cannabis, whether it's this YouTube channel or one of the many web pages and stuff that Christina and I are involved in. It's really about educating that patient, you know, and because in this industry, we're missing so much standardization, quality, and safety, and, you know, education for patients. So where do we fill in the gaps, and who's going to fill in those gaps? It's us. So I applaud your effort and appreciate what you're doing.
I think too, it's so important, like when looking at research, right, which is what you guys do, when we develop the standards, people ask me very early on, you know, why aren't you developing a dosing standard? And I'm like, well, that's a little premature, because until people can make a consistent quality product every single time, where a patient can come back to the dispensary and get that same strain and have that same effect, there's not really any opportunity to provide accurate dosing, right? Because it doesn't really matter if it says 10 milligrams, if sometimes your 10 milligram package is 8 milligrams or 80.
Well, and especially
it's all
and especially with cannabis and CBD dosing, you know, you always want to start slow, right?
Yeah.
Slow and low.
That's
It also
so
depends.
it's a very old term in pharma.
Yeah. And yeah, so and you have to make sure that, especially some of these patients who have multiple illnesses, so we have to completely understand what they're taking from a pharma sector, if they're still taking,
so important,
because there's those drug interactions. So you can't, you know, no one's going to overdose and die, obviously, from cannabis, right? But
Right.
you don't want to over titrate them so that they're laid out on the couch for 24 hours and can't move. I mean, nobody wants to feel like they're in, you know, quicksand
then
for
that
24 hours.
it's not going to want to come back and give it a second
Right.
try, and that could be
Right.
a therapeutic medication choice for them. So
Right.
yeah, it's super. I think the other part is too, while cannabis is super safe, and you'll hear that always, just what you just said, that, you know, nobody's ever died from it and blah, blah, blah. And that's all 100% true. The thing is, right now, as cannabis as an industry is growing so incredibly quickly, and people are having to scale so fast, and they don't have experience of growing on scale or manufacturing on scale. And so there is a ton of different risks that come through that scaling process, and by doing things in such a larger capacity, that's really where you see, I mean, the plant itself, no one's going to die from it, but the risk that can come in through, you know, either growing conditions and pesticides and mold, or any kind of microbials later through the extraction process, any improper cleaning or handling, like
impurities,
we really want to, you know, prevent.
Right. I mean, because we come from, you know, the biotech pharma side, we expect consistency, right? In healthcare, we expect that when we consume that product,
and
what I took a month ago and it's gone, and I go and I re-up, that same product, I'm taking the same medicine. And, you know, being a clinical wacko, I pay attention very closely, you know, and I do things deliberately. Like, you know, I'm a patient in Pennsylvania through the MMJ program, and I make sure I take my medicine the same time every day, the same way, because for me, that's how I measure whether or not it's working. Because if you take it 2 hours later, say, you know, at nighttime, you'll find that you're going to start having those side effects that you've been trying to mitigate with your medicine.
All right. Well, Bruce is in my ear, guys.
Okay.
You know, and I just mentioned, I'm not as consistent as you are. I mean, Christina is regulated and takes care of her meds. Like, for example, you know, because of my previous, you know, health condition, I have some other pharma meds, and I get a text from my mom every morning and every evening to remind me, you know, take your meds. You know, and I always like, okay, I'm on it. And like a couple hours later, I'll remember to do it. So I'm not nearly as consistent as you. I wish I were, but okay, Bruce. All right.
Patients are not compliant like that.
I know, right? Anyway, let's wrap it up.
All
Ladies, appreciate your time today with us. Leslie, thank you so much. It wasn't so painful. We just wing it around here. Christina, you want to take us out of here? Ooh, what do we got?
Welcome to the farm.
Nice. I need one of those that says crazy in front of farm.
I've got another one in my office that says, not my monkeys, not my circus.
Yes.
Nice. Very nice. Yes. Very cool. Christina, take us out of here.
Keep up all the amazing stuff you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much.
Too.
And thank you for all that you do. And please, thank you so much for coming on today. I know you're super busy. You're all over the place. You've got tons of meetings. We so much appreciate you, your team, and everything everyone does.
Oh, I'll share that with everybody. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Be well.
Great weekend. Take care.
Bye.